Most men are chemically castrating themselves 6 times a day, and they think it's healthy snacking. You think your testosterone is dropping because you're getting old. But what if I told you the real problem is that your body hasn't experienced metabolic silence in 20 years? Every time you eat, you spike the one hormone that screams at your testes to shut down. You aren't just eating calories, you are drowning your manhood in noise. Let me show you the difference between the modern man, Henry, and the man you were designed to be. Let me paint you a picture. Henry wakes up at 6:30, stomach growling. He shuffles to the kitchen, pours cereal, downs orange juice, grabs a muffin for the road. By 9, he's hungry again. Snack drawer. By noon, lunch. By 3, another snack because he read somewhere that eating every 3 hours keeps the metabolism going. By 6, dinner. By 9, he's on the couch with chips, ice cream, whatever. Sleep, repeat. This is his life. This is most men's lives. And here's what nobody tells you. Henry's body hasn't experienced metabolic silence in years. His insulin never drops. His system never rests. And his testosterone? It's drowning in the noise. Now meet Leo, 10,000 years ago. He wakes up. No breakfast. Because there is no breakfast. The herd left 2 days ago. He's hungry, yeah. But that hunger doesn't weaken him. It sharpens him. His cortisol rises just enough. His norepinephrine ticks up. His senses get clearer. His mind gets focused. He's not panicking. He's hunting. And when he finally eats, maybe 12 hours later, maybe 18, his body knows exactly what to do with that food. Burn it. Use it. Store a little for later. Then, return to silence. His hormones aren't confused. They're rhythmic. They're strong. They're cycling the way evolution designed them to cycle. This is the difference. And it's not just ancestral romanticism. It's biochemistry. Your body isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. But the environment you're living in? That's what's broken. So here's the first thing you need to understand. Testosterone doesn't live in a vacuum. It's not some isolated molecule floating around waiting for you to lift heavy or take a supplement. Testosterone is part of a massive hormonal conversation. And the loudest voice in that conversation right now? Insulin. When you eat, insulin goes up. That's normal. That's supposed to happen. Insulin's job is to shuttle glucose into your cells, store energy, tell your body, we're fed, we're safe. Build, grow, relax. But when insulin never comes down, when it stays elevated because you're eating all day long, that message becomes a problem. Because insulin doesn't just control blood sugar, it controls the axis between your brain and your testes. The hypothalamus to pituitary to gonadal axis, the system that tells your body to produce testosterone in the first place. Here's what happens. Chronically elevated insulin interferes with something called luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is the signal your pituitary sends to your testes saying, make testosterone. But when insulin is high all the time, that signal gets muffled. The message doesn't land. Your testes don't get the memo. Testosterone production doesn't crash overnight. It just fades, slowly, quietly. You don't notice it in a single day. You notice it over months. Over years. You wake up and realize you don't feel like you used to. And you can't pinpoint when it changed. But here's the kicker. This isn't a discipline problem. This is a hormonal clash. You're not weak. You're just constantly spiking the one hormone that suppresses the hormone you actually want. So what happens when you stop eating all the time? When you create space? When you let insulin fall? This is where it gets interesting. And this is where most men mess it up. Because the first week of fasting doesn't feel like optimization. It feels like hell. You skip breakfast. By 10, you're irritable. By noon, you're lightheaded. By 2, you're convinced this is destroying your hormones. You check Reddit. You find a post about how fasting tanked my testosterone. You quit. You go back to eating every 3 hours. And you tell yourself, see, I knew this wasn't for me. But you stopped right before the shift. Right before your body figured out what you were doing. Because here's what actually happened during that first week. Your body interpreted the absence of food as a threat, not because fasting is dangerous, but because your nervous system has been conditioned to expect constant fuel. When that fuel disappears, your adrenal glands react. Cortisol goes up. Not a little, a lot. You feel wired, restless, like something is wrong. And technically, something is wrong, but not the way you think. Your body is stuck between two states. The old pattern where food was always available, and the new pattern where food comes in waves. The stress gap, the transition phase, the place where almost everyone quits. Meanwhile, testosterone dips. Again, not because fasting is hurting you, but because your body is making a calculated decision. Survival first, reproduction second. When resources feel uncertain, your nervous system prioritizes staying alive over making babies. Cortisol stays high. Testosterone temporarily steps back. This is ancient software. This is the same biology that kept your ancestors alive during actual famines. The problem is, you're not in a famine. You're in a self-imposed eating window, but your body doesn't know that yet. So what happens if you push through? If you give it 2 weeks instead of 3 days? This is where everything flips. Once your body realizes food is coming back, just on a rhythm, the emergency shuts off. Cortisol drops. And when cortisol drops, testosterone doesn't just return, it surges. Because now you've cleared the noise. Insulin is low. The signal from your brain to your testes is clean again. Luteinizing hormone lands. Your androgen receptors. The docking stations that actually allow testosterone to do its job, those receptors wake up. They become sensitive again. And here's the part nobody talks about. You can have average testosterone levels and feel amazing. Or you can have high testosterone levels and feel nothing. The difference? Receptor sensitivity. When insulin is chronically elevated, your androgen receptors get dull. The signal gets noisy. It's like trying to have a conversation in a room full of static. Testosterone is there, but the message isn't getting through. Fasting clears the static. Suddenly, even moderate levels of testosterone start producing outsized effects. Strength, drive, clarity, confidence. You're not producing more hormone. You're using what you have more efficiently. This is metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between glucose and fat. And it's the foundation of everything else. But let's go deeper, because there's another system that kicks in during fasting, one that most men are terrified of. Growth hormone. You've been told your whole life that if you don't eat protein every 3 hours, your muscles will disintegrate, that fasting equals muscle loss, that your body will eat itself. And on the surface, that sounds logical, but it's wrong. When you fast, growth hormone doesn't drop. It skyrockets. Studies show increases of 200%, 500%, in some cases over 1000%. Why? Because growth hormone's job is preservation. It protects lean tissue. It mobilizes fat for fuel. It keeps your structure intact while calories are low. Your body isn't cannibalizing muscle. It's burning fat and protecting what matters. At the same time, autophagy ramps up. The word literally means self-eating, which sounds terrifying until you understand what's being eaten. Not muscle. Damaged proteins, dysfunctional cells, metabolic junk that's been piling up for years. Your body is cleaning house, refining, sharpening. That smaller look some men notice in the first week, that's not muscle loss. That's glycogen depletion. That's inflammation dropping. That's water leaving the tissue. What's underneath is denser, harder, leaner. You're not shrinking. You're revealing. And while this is happening, another upgrade starts showing up. One that has nothing to do with the mirror. Your brain changes. The constant background noise, the urge to check your phone, grab a snack, chase stimulation, it fades. When you fast, dopamine and norepinephrine shift in a very specific direction. Not toward anxiety. Toward precision. Focus narrows. Distractions lose their pull. You feel alert without feeling wired. This is what men describe as hunter mode. Not aggression, clarity paired with intent. And there's a reason this state feels so natural. Evolution shaped the male nervous system to perform best when resources were scarce. When food wasn't guaranteed, the men who became sharper, more decisive, more driven, those men survived. Fasting taps into that same circuitry. It restores sensitivity to dopamine instead of flooding it. In a world of constant stimulation, screens, sugar, notifications, most dopamine systems are completely numb. Nothing feels rewarding anymore. Fasting forces a reset. Ordinary experiences start to register again. Motivation returns. You don't need to chase the next hit. You're present enough to create momentum on your own. Now let's talk about the part nobody wants to hear. Body fat, specifically visceral fat. The fat wrapped around your organs. The fat you can't see in the mirror but you can feel in your gut. That fat isn't just stored energy. It's hormonally active tissue, and it contains an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. The more visceral fat you carry, the more testosterone quietly leaks out of your system and gets converted into a hormone that works against male drive, recovery, and body composition. This isn't theory, this is chemistry. When fasting lowers insulin and forces your body to burn stored fat, aromatase activity drops. Less conversion happens. Testosterone stays testosterone. Not because you added something new, but because you stopped losing what you already had. It's like sealing a crack in a dam instead of trying to pump more water in. This is why fat loss through fasting feels different from fat loss through constant restriction. Your hormonal profile becomes cleaner, more decisive, more stable. And here's where the long-term picture starts to matter. Most men drift into the same future without ever choosing it. More visceral fat, less energy, more dependence on stimulants, prescriptions, routines that keep them functional but never powerful. They call it aging. But what it really is? Loss of metabolic control. Now contrast that with the alternative. A body that knows how to switch fuels instead of panicking. Hormones that signal clearly instead of fighting through noise. A nervous system that isn't hijacked by constant dopamine hits. This is metabolic flexibility. This is hormonal resilience. This is masculine energy restored at the biological level. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. And it's not supposed to be. The first 2 weeks are uncomfortable. You'll feel restless. You'll feel hungry. You'll question whether this is worth it. And here's what I need you to understand. That discomfort is not damage. It's adaptation. Your body is switching from one fuel source to another. From constant glucose to stored fat. From external stimulation to internal generation. The stress gap is real. But it's temporary. And on the other side, everything changes. Energy stabilizes. Mental clarity sharpens. Strength doesn't disappear. It consolidates. You stop feeling dependent on food. You stop needing constant input. You become self-sustaining. And that shift, that transition from reactive to generative, that's what sovereignty feels like. Here's the line that matters most. Hunger is not an emergency. It's information. When you stop reacting to it instantly, you stop being controlled by it. That discipline compounds. Self-control in the body becomes self-control everywhere else. In your work, in your relationships, in your ability to delay gratification and build something that lasts. This doesn't mean never enjoying food. It doesn't mean fearing meals or obsessing over every calorie. It means rhythm, feast and fast, expansion and contraction, abundance and discipline. That rhythm is the foundation of a powerful life. And testosterone? Testosterone is just the byproduct, the signal that your system is working the way it was designed to work. So if this reframed how you see your body, don't ignore that signal. Sit with it. Test it. Start small. Push your first meal back 1 hour tomorrow. Not extreme. Just enough to remind your system who's in charge. Because you didn't come here for theory. You came here to remember who you are. A built-in system, not a loophole. And when you align with that system, everything else falls into place. Most men will live their entire lives buried in the static, never knowing how powerful they were actually designed to be. Don't let that be you. If you're ready to silence the noise and reclaim the potency that is your biological birthright, subscribe to Ancestral Prime. Stop feeding the weakness. Start feeding the hunter. Stay hungry.